recording. So this is... What episode is this? What podcast is this? What book is this? What is anything?
Well, what is life? What is anything? And I think that you need to be responsible for which episode it is, but I think it's maybe 5. The book is my choice. I'm sorry, I'm punishing you again. Shuggie Bain. By Douglas Stuart, Scottish. It's first novel, and it was pretty tough go. You know, when I told you I started reading after you got pretty well into it before I started it even, and you told me to put my helmet on, and I think you were right. It was a bumpy ride.
Maybe I did start reading it quickly, but yeah, I found
you
it.
You did. You started reading it before I did, and I had a hard time getting into it because it's so unpleasant. It's very unpleasant, which is one of my questions: is why did the author start with Shuggie at 15? And then go back and tell the story, because he's very unlikable in that first chapter. But then to go back and see his childhood, it explains why he's unlikable. I know it's for dramatic effect, but he's not a very sympathetic character, at least in the beginning.
Well, as maybe it's said in the literature podcast business, that could be called, the first chapter could be called foreshadowing, perhaps.
Maybe.
As you said, like, wow, Shuggie is this piece of shit dude who, what is it? He, like, works at a deli and he, like, spits in the food.
Apparently. Yeah, apparently. Something, my notes just said, I don't think I like this guy.
Yeah.
After that little comment, yeah.
He's from Glasgow.
Let's look at some background here, because this takes place in the 1980s when Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister of the UK, and it was a very bad economic time, as you might remember. You won't remember, but as you might know. So her economic policies were really harsh. And I think there was a global recession going on at the time, but her economic policies were to bring down inflation, to stop the welfare state, which apparently the UK had become, and to, she made greater efforts toward a free market economy. So she was aligned with Reagan. They were similarly politically motivated. And just as I looked up a little bit of information about this to get some background, because these people are just not desperately poor because they're all on the dole, but I didn't understand why they would live in a coal mine adjacent housing scheme. But apparently in the 70s, 1972 and 1974, the coal miners struck and, put a stop to the nation. The nation just came to a standstill. And Margaret Thatcher, who was prime minister for many years, 80s into the 90s, she was anti-union and broke many unions and closed many coal mines. And so I'm not terribly surprised that the coal mine was closed, but I am surprised that they continued to live next to it and suffer from the dust that was everywhere. But they were in, council housing, which is like, it's not even affordable housing. It's government-sponsored housing. So I think that they were sort of stuck there.
So, yeah, you're talking about the Shuggie is the main character, and he has kind of a blended family, and they move into a community near a coal mine that's shut down.
Yeah, it's like a coal mine town. It's like the town adjacent to the coal mine. All the men used to work at the coal mine, but they don't anymore. The coal mine's closed.
Yeah, it's you could say I was thinking again that word that elevates your literature podcast cred. This book seems very Dickensian. if you will. And I'll even maybe coin, if I can even use that word, a new term, which is neo-Dickensian. So, yeah, eat that, any other podcasts out there. Neo-Dickensian.
I think that fits. I think that totally fits. Yeah.
It's bleak. It's gray. It is hopeless, but everybody's in denial and copes by either religion or alcohol or just your relative stature compared to your neighbors. That's how you can survive. And I don't know about it, but maybe Dickens' time was an austere time. Maybe like the colonies, some people are making money. We're conquering the world, but it's not most of it's not coming back to the homeland to where
exactly
the workers are. So I don't know why. Like, was the 70s a boom and the 80s was a bust or something? I know there was.
I think there were global recessions during the 70s. It was a very volatile time, and it was also, I think, in the UK and probably in the United States. Also, they were concerned about becoming a welfare state, as many other places in Europe were heading post World War II. And they wanted to put the brakes on that because it was maybe too expensive for the government, or it was not, big government. They didn't want government. I don't know. I don't know exactly why Republicans in the United States want to stop big government. They see it as, quote, socialism. I mean, that's the buzzword that they use. They think government is too big. They want everybody to take care of themselves. And, it just, I think that's the philosophy.
Yeah, it could be. And wasn't Reagan's thing like trickle down economics? The brilliant idea of like, hey,
give the tax cuts to the, it's the opposite of Bernie Sanders. It's give the tax cuts to the wealthy, and that will make them employ new people and do new stuff. And it doesn't work. And this is what Trump did, the same thing. We know it doesn't work, but the Republicans put it forth. And according to the historian that I read, Heather Cox Richardson, she said that ever since World War II, or the New Deal, she only looks at America, the New Deal that FDR put in, where there's a social safety net and there's Social Security and there's this and there's that. Ever since then, the Republicans have been trying to dismantle that to create small government rather than big government responsible.
Yeah, I should know more about it. I don't know about Thatcher. I know she austerity is her word.
Yes.
But, this is a book. This book is about the downtrodden who somehow get by, and this is of course Scotland. When you think of UK, you think of England, and when you think of England, you think of London, and when you think of London, you're thinking money and nice buildings, and people are like, oh, I want to live there, but there's lots of bleak parts in the UK even now. So I think we've both been to Scotland.
Yes, we have, and this takes place in the surrounds of Glasgow, which is, a big city in London, Scotland, the south of Scotland, not to be confused with the more historically rich Edinburgh, which is in the north in the Highlands. So this was, a big trading city involved in, a lot of mercantile shipbuilding, that kind of thing. So it did thrive in the 19th century, I think. But, it's not thriving at this point. I want to read a passage from the book that sort of, I think, illustrates not only the environment that these folks are living in next to this coal mine, but how the coal mine and living next to this dead coal mine influence their lives. I think it's a really good and well-written metaphor for not only the environment, the people that are affected by it. So this is on page 145, chapter 13, and it's describing Yeeegh climbing these coal dust hills and over onto the other side. And we know Yeeegh is the older brother of Shuggie, the middle child, and he's very thin, looks gaunt all the time, wants to be an artist, kind of a daydreamer. So on page 145, it was slow going, climbing up the crumbling black hill. It sucked at his feet with every step. It ate him nearly to his knees. The fine jet dust found every opening and filled every space. It poured over the top of his slip-on loafers, their braided tassels swinging up clouds of black like the tail of a dirty cow. On the downward slope, the loose slag raged after him like a hungry wave. Although there was nothing to him, his hollowness still brought the crust of the hill pouring down. The slag shrugged as though it were turning itself inside out, clearing him off and revealing a darker, untouched blackness beneath. Each time the hills wiped him away, he felt more unnoticed, more like an unseen ghost than usual. So I think this passage, this second paragraph in chapter 13, illustrates the instability of the environment, the instability of the economic situation, the all-consuming and enveloping nature of this poor economic situation in this dead coal mining area, and how it seeps in every pore and covers you. And even if you want to climb the hill and get over it and get out, you can't, because it's so all-consuming. It so affects your self-esteem, your ability to raise yourself up, your ability to get out. You're still stuck with that coal dust. Even though they weren't coal miners, they're influenced by the environment, which symbolizes the economic downturn in the UK. They just can't. They're just consumed by this dust. And it's just, I felt that was a really well-written paragraph. There's a lot of good writing in this book, but I thought that was a really strong metaphor for the lifestyle that these folks have.
Yeah, I would call this book a feel-good book, so you can feel good about your own life, that you're not any of these people, but also revel in that you're in good hands of someone who can, put out phrases like that.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't really remember that. I remember the scene of that. I don't remember that text, but there's other texts where I found ones like that to be like his version of humor.
Mm-hmm.
Like the guy is just overwhelmed. The writer is like overwhelming you with this, like word salad of sensory, I don't know, words where it's what is the word, like grandiose writing or something, where it's just hammering you over the head of like, it's bleak, okay? It's horrible. It's really bad. And it almost seems as he would, there's other ones I remember, passages where you get to the middle and you're like, dude, are you okay? I think you're just messing with me, that you're being like a what's it called? Hyperbolic, but not but in terms but with volume of words. So I thought there were kind of things of humor like that. And one
Absolutely.
I can remember, a short one like that, is where he said, often Shuggie's mom is named Agnes and she's an alcoholic. And one thing that, so she's hungover, she gets up and it says she leans forward and lets the blood drain back into her eyeballs. And like, I just like kind of laughed at that, because it just he's trying to write like a horror movie scene or something, where something really terrible sounding, but you can just sense it's kind of too ridiculous to be taken seriously, maybe. So
well, it's so horrific but so trite, because it was like every day. I mean, it's such a horrible picture, but he endured this every day. Shuggie, who liked his mother, just endured. His descriptions are pretty good. So I found another one. This is the the Shuggie's father, who's called Shug, I guess, is a taxi driver. He drives in the night shift. And at one point he throws out the dinner of a sandwich that his wife Agnes has made for him. And he goes instead to this 24/7 shop where he can get something to eat from this proprietor called Di Rollo. So the description of Di Rollo really struck me. So here it is. This is on page 47. Joe DeRollo stood behind the counter, as he seemed to do every hour of the day. At night, the fluorescent light made him look deceased. A small man, thin hair and slicked back off his face, with chip grease or Brill cream or both. Like an oily iceberg, only his swollen head and shoulders were visible above the counter. The rest of his sallow bulk was squished up against the machete he kept under the counter. He greeted everyone with a phlegmy clearing of the throat and tilting of his fat head. "How you doing, Joe?" asked Shug, with no genuine interest. "Aye, not so bad." "Been busy with our fair ladies the night?" Shug shoved his thumb in the direction of a gaunt-looking customer who, eyes closed, was swaying on her feet. "Yeah, they've been a-coming and a-going, you know." This description of the people that, the characters that people this world is pretty vivid, pretty interesting, pretty good, I find.
Yeah, I think that's also maybe Dickensian, maybe, because he would always write the good characters with like rosy cheeks and skin fair and curls that went on forever, and then the bad guys are like her horrible pinched face with thinning yellow hair and teeth that was just wiggling or whatever. It's just like a
and their name was like practically Slime. Yeah. Mr. Slime. You know, they always had these descriptive names as well.
Yeah, this.
And, you know, Shuggie, I don't know, it's a nickname for Hugh, I suppose, but it just kind of, this Shuggie, he just kind of shrugs through life. And that's what struck me. He's apparently very attractive to women, although his flaws, this writer has no hesitation writing down people's flaws and explaining, you know, describing them very, very clearly. That even in spite of this bald spot and the comb over, he's still attractive to women for some reason and just thrives on that, loves it.
Yeah. There's final thing about, I found like humor. The funniest part I wrote down, kind of eyeball it, is where Agnes, you know, she wants to get a drink. She doesn't have any money. So she walks into town to get, to sell her fur coat,
mink coat,
and it's raining like hell. So she's just like soaked and just looks horrible. And you know, she wanders into a shop or a garage, a repair shop, to just use the bathroom. And the guy knows, and so she, you know, he looks her up and down, and she's thinking like, oh, look at this guy, no neck, like short, no money, like terrible guy. I wish I had it. I can't find it. Blah, blah, blah. And then he says to her like, oh, well, what's a pretty girl like you doing? Where are you walking alone? And he goes like, and then the next sentence, actually, his ears aren't so bad.
Yeah.
And his chin is in good shape. And then he says, so you're going to get drink, right? Because, I mean, why else would you be wearing that coat other than to sell it? And then she goes, actually, his pants are not so good. And it's just the judgment shifts. So, yeah, the narrator usually describes things from a third person, but in this case, he's like narrating from her behind, in her own mind, judging by how well he's responding to her.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, this is so funny.
Yeah, that was a very telling scene. So this book is a, you know, straightforward narrative, although we get the Shuggie at 15 in the first chapter, but then we go back, you know, several years when we see Agnes and Shug and the three children living with Agnes's parents, and then it progresses from there to the inevitable end. We see that Agnes is an alcoholic, that Shug is a womanizer, and in spite of some effort, it seems they're just doomed. We know they're doomed, and we know that her alcoholism is going to get the better of her, and it certainly does. And it gets progressively worse over the course of the book. It's a straightforward narrative. But what this book really shines in is the character. And it's a character-driven narrative. Even the minor characters like this Joe what's his name? Joe DeRollo, or the guy in the gas car repair shop. They're extremely memorable because they're so crisp and vivid in their description and in their dialogue that they have. So the important thing here, I think, in this book is not the narrative, because we know she's just in this spiral, this downward spiral. But the important thing in this book, I think, is the characters. The characters drive this.
Yeah. It was like, I assume this is autobiographical of the guy.
I don't know.
Names changed. And yeah, it's just, it focuses on Shuggie, who's the son. But yeah, let's so yeah, what do you got? You got Agnes is the mom, who's kind of the main character. And
I really think she is, even though the book is called Shuggie Bain, really Agnes is the focus, because all of the characters are important only in their relationship to her.
Yes, she's the center. And what happens? So she lives, let's say the beginning is she lives with her mom and dad in some apartment
in Glasgow with her 3 kids two kids from a previous marriage, new husband, and Shuggie, who's her second husband's son.
That's she was married before to a Catholic guy who was like a good and decent dude, but he was too boring, and she just couldn't take it, and so she left, which also rang true again to Madame Bovary, which was her tragic flaw, that she found a guy, but he's just too boring.
He's just too boring. She said she couldn't go back. Here, Agnes said she couldn't go back to a life where she knew the parameters, she knew the edges, and so it was just too known, too normal, too obvious to her. She wanted a bit more of adventure, and Shug represents that.
So she leaves, and he actually he wants to see his children, and and she's resistant to that, and then he even sends money.
Yep.
And then that ends when he realizes his kids don't even recognize him, and their name is now Bain. So she deleted his last name from them, and now they're the son of the kids of this other guy. So he's out of the picture. Right.
He finally, takes umbrage.
So there's 2 grandparents, 3 kids, Agnes, and then Shug. And Shug is the father of Shuggie. So they have 1 kid together.
Right.
So what the hell do we do? So like there's a scene where all these women are gambling, playing cards together, partying, and this is normal.
Yes.
And then Shug gets home, and like the party's over. Everybody, get the hell out.
Yes. So this took place at the mother and father's apartment, where Shug and Agnes and the 3 children are living. And this was a normal social event that the group of women who are neighbors. I found this very interesting also in this book. We've got this circle of so-called friends, but they're really not friends, because this one woman who plays cards, she bullies the rest of them, accuses them of cheating, and then she whips out her, money book, and they have to pay her for the orders that they made through the catalog with her. So they're really just neighbors, and it's sort of a forced socialization among them. But it is nevertheless very normal that they get together and socialize and play cards. They pay her for the catalog purchases that they've made. But yes, you're right. Once a man arrives home, then all the women scatter. You're right about that.
That's funny what you say. Oh yeah, they are actually. Yeah, none of the people are actually real friends. They're just kind of in the same orbit.
That's right. There's no friendship here that I could find until the very end.
That reminds me of like Seinfeld, how like Jerry has all these random crazy people like wandering into his house all the time, and but he just has to. He's like, this is my life. You just, whoever's near you becomes who's literally near you.
Exactly. It's just a matter of geography. It's the people that that they live in the same building. That's it. And it's sort of this, it sort of mimics the family. You know, these are just the people that you happen to share parents with. It's not like you're loyal only because of familiarity. There's no real strong connection. There's no love among the siblings or among the lady friends with each other. And it's worse when Shuggie decides he's going to move the family out of the parents' apartment into a house with a real front door. Actually, it's a downstairs flat, and there's an upstairs flat as well, to this housing scheme next to this defunct coal mine. And Agnes goes along with it because she thinks maybe she can recapture his attention because he's a womanizer. He's out with everybody, even her friends, even the people that she plays cards with. She hopes that she can get him back if she agrees to this move because he did it all on his own. But in fact, when they get there, he more or less drops them off and has no intention of living with them. And she's stuck out there away from the city, which she prefers, among these vipers of these women whose men are all out of work and just going to the social club. She stays because she figures she'd never get him back if she leaves. In the meantime, he goes his merry way and drops in for a little sex when he wants to. It's just a really horrible situation.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So, yeah, she has dreams of like, this is my life? What, this is my life? And so, that's easier to imagine in like, whatever, Dickens time, 1800s, when you might see an illustration once a year. I don't know, if you're so poor, there's no movies. You see someone's drawing of something. Or if you can read about it. But like in the 80s, she has pretty good access to what actual potential things are out there, but then what reels her into this new better life is that there's a door, like her own door, and even her mom calls her like kind of a dumbass, like what are you talking about? But of course it's all just symptomatic of she's got deeper problems. That's all medicated with the alcohol. So yeah, they get dumped there, and there's some more like funny language there that you just kind of not laugh but like scoff out loud, where Shuggie says, why wasn't I enough for you? Like, why wasn't I enough for you? Mm-hmm. Why couldn't you stop drinking out of love for me? I thought giving you a child would do it, like would get you to stop. So it's just like out of nowhere. He kind of thinks up an exit line, like, we have to break up because I thought I'd be enough. When it's just obvious, he did minimal research on this place. He finds out about it from his local fish and chip shop,
right?
Saying like, yeah, it's pretty good. He goes and they see it for the first time. And he realizes, okay, this is a big mistake, and I'm gonna get out of here. And so his lame breakup line is like, I thought giving you a child would make you stop drinking, which is just like totally like, what are you even talking about? And then he's out of there. Yeah,
he's pretty much despicable because he carries on with as many women as he wants, and he says the women are after him all the time, they won't leave him alone, and then drops in on her occasionally, and she goes for it, because apparently in this society, a woman is nothing on her own. She has to have the attention and access of a man. Even though, this is public housing. I mean, they're all on the dole, and they all get this stipend, and they all, nobody works. They all just, are on the dole. He's pretty despicable. But you'd think he's going to have some redeeming quality when he says that. Why wasn't I enough for you? Why didn't you quit? Why didn't you stop drinking? Until you think he's okay, until she says, well, then why did you bring us here? And he said, I wanted to see if you would come. He just wanted to see how low she would go. So he's a big manipulator, a horrible manipulator, maneuverer, selfish bastard. That's all he is.
Yeah, and it's just so crazy how you just can't even comprehend how like, oh, he's so bad. But I mean, he does target kind of like the weakest people of a herd.
Yes.
And another comedic thing I thought was so funny, not funny, but just like, what the hell? It's so beyond imagination where it talks about Agnes finds a letter from herself, I think, about when she leaves her first husband, and so she whips out of the door and dumps little Catherine and little Leek into Shug's taxi, and Shug says like, well, what are these kids doing here? I thought we were gonna have a fresh start.
Yes.
And it goes into how he left his 4 kids from his first wife, and he had to claw their hands off his legs so he could get out the door.
Yeah.
And it says he closed the door on their fingers, and so he shows up alone, and Agnes brings her 2 kids, and he's like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my god, what a bunch of idiots!
Really, it's really pretty phenomenal. And he's a womanizer with no morals at all. She's an alcoholic that just will do anything for the attention of a man. And while she's living there in this housing scheme, her reputation just gets worse and worse and worse because she became the local whore. Everybody knew who she was until she went to a few AA meetings, not too much stuck, but then at Shuggie's 9th birthday, she'd been 3 months sober. And then she got a job in the local petrol station. And that's when she meets Eugene, who's one of her neighbor's brothers. And she's doing really well. She's good at her job. The scene where he says, don't put the sandwich or don't put the roll through the little box underneath the plexiglass divider because it'll squish the bread, and she takes it apart 1 slice at a time and passes it through. That was, I thought, pretty funny. And she's attracted to pretty much to Eugene. He's a pretty sober and stable guy, and he's attracted to her because one thing about her is she does have pride in her person, and she keeps herself clean, and she always wears makeup and always gets dressed up. Not like those other hags that are living in the housing development with her. And she goes out with Eugene for a certain period of time, and they're doing really well until he forces her, or cajoles her and forces her to take a drink. Come on, you beat this. You can have a drink now. And he wants, and I was trying to understand his motivation. His motivation, I think, is he wants it to be normal. That's what normal people do. They take a drink nowadays, now and then. Go ahead. You beat this. You can do it. Be normal, because I want to be normal. Have a drink. And she does, and then she just devolves even worse and goes really down the rabbit hole with falling off the wagon for that.
Yep. It talks about how she drinks vodka and other things, but her main drink, she says, is lager, which is just like beer.
Yeah.
And I was always like kind of mystified by how like, oh, I took 1 sip of beer and felt immediately better. And I'm always like, beer, for me at least, beer is like, it has not really an effect unless you have like 5 of them or 4 of them or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like, there's people who like are, they smoke cigarettes or just cigarettes. I've tried smoking cigarettes. I've never ever felt, I'm like, what is this addiction? Like where you're like, oh yes, sweet cigarettes. And it's like, I don't know. This was the first time I ever wondered how like, beer can like really hit someone if you have that predisposition for alcohol. Like, I don't know. I was always wondering like, why really beer just like, wipes her out. When you think of alcoholic, you're thinking of like someone just like whiskey or more hard, all the time hard drinks. Anyway.
Well, but she's drinking it all day long, and she's, got it stashed everywhere, and she's never without it. So that, she needs to have a certain amount in order to even function, I think. And so that's why she wakes up so groggy, because she hasn't had her dose, sort of.
Yep.
That was a turning point, that episode with Eugene where, he forced her exactly force her, but cajoled her. Her instinct is to please her man, and so she does. And she probably drank also because she wanted to test herself, to see if she really had overcome it. She thought she might have. But I think after that, even though he visits her often, he repapers her kitchen, he brings her food, stuff like that. She can't get that back because I think she's recognized her true vulnerability to her alcoholism. And that was a turning point for her. She went down faster after that.
I've had friends who've like quit drinking too. And they always say how like eventually they just don't even, they have to know who's going to be there, like where is it? And not because like they're going to be so tempted, but because like if it's a bunch of random people, I'm not going to be wanted to talk about, well, wouldn't you have a drink?
Mm-hmm,
Oh, really?
mm-hmm.
Why?
Mm-hmm.
My cousin or my mom. And they're like, I don't want to even talk about.
Right.
It's just such a stupid, like boring topic.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Because when they're having like a Coca-Cola, it just always comes up. And then you just leave early always. And you're like, why did I even come out here? Right. It's just like
it's a wasted effort if every social event has to involve alcohol, and you're an alcoholic that's trying not to drink alcohol, then just I don't drink, that's it. And the worst of all of them was that character Ginty, that lady, the woman who lived in the neighborhood, who would, just sidle into the room and, coax somebody else, a man, to get his money to buy more drinks and have Agnes kiss him because she was attractive. And she was just a horror, Ginty.
Yep, that was where whole hyperbolic chapter where you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That was like not humorous because she is hungover. She remembers getting, raped by a taxi driver, and she gets in the bath. She's like sore and bruised everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then that lady comes over and she confides in her, like, look at my arm. This is what happened. And she says something kind of sympathetic, like, oh, well, the Lord gives us challenges, but it's up to us to like stand up or whatever. And then she invites this random dude who
mm-hmm.
I think is like a widower or something, or has some legit thing, like his wife ran out on him maybe, or I don't know. And then she calls him over, bring over some drinks, and why don't you give her a dance? Look how good she looks. Look, she's lonely. Look. And she needs a good man like you, because she's pretty much on a speed dial list for taxi drivers who have their way with her anytime they want. Like this outrageous over the top joke, I guess, while she's trying to make this match in heaven or whatever. And then finally she just, as Agnes remembers, her last night and her whole life, she just barfs all over this guy mid dance.
Yeah.
And he gets the hell out of there. So that was like
that was horrible. It was Ginty was just totally pimping her, and just to get more drinks, and that was just a horrible. It was a new degradation. It was a new degradation for Agnes. And we know that Agnes is on a collision course here.
Yeah, that scene was one where I was able to realize this could not be done properly, like in a movie or like a show, like, because the text tells you what happened, what she's thinking, what her body is like, what she says, what the other person said, and just in a way that if it wasn't a movie, you wouldn't be able to comprehend what everything is happening. So it helped me. It was a reminder, like kind of books are still king, maybe.
Not everything is transferable. Yeah, it was really unpleasant. It was really cringeworthy, that whole chapter. So Agnes is on her way down, and she kicks out Leek as he becomes a man she kicks out both her boys as they enter manhood and sort of see the responsible way and start judging her for what she does. She kicks Leek out, and then she's tried to actually, before she kicks Leek out, she tries to commit suicide and Yeeegh prevents her. And I think that's by wrestling her to the floor. And I think that's what is the turning point for getting rid of Yeeegh. She ends up in a psych hospital, and Shuggie goes to live with Shug and his new woman and her 6 children. So he's there for 3 weeks, just being odd kid out and, just trying to stay in the corner and out of everybody's way. And then 3 weeks later, after Agnes gets out of the hospital, she goes to that apartment and demands for her son to come out. And she does not back down. So one thing about Agnes is the irony thing about Agnes is she's got this big pride and keeps herself clean and is able to stare people down and just demand what she wants when she's not drunk. And Shuggie comes out to her and they go home. Then she decides they're going to have a new start. She starts selling everything off. And they're going to move into Glasgow in a tenement.
Yeah, they that's a whole bunch of stuff happens. Eugene is another nice guy they were dating, and then after a year of sobriety, they throw a party for her with her AA friends can come by, and there's no drinks, and Eugene's like, what the hell is this?
Out.
Like,
right.
Jesus.
Right.
This is like loser central. Like, wow, I want to be with these people? Like, my God. And so, yeah, everyone's happy. And then, that's when he says, look, you're healed. So just let's rejoin, normal society.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he keeps coming around because he knows he screwed up. He screwed up and the kids hate him because he's just a total dipshit. And finally, she says to him, like, what's the chances we move in together finally? Like, are you here or what? And he goes, nah.
Yeah.
So he finally just realizes, like, I'm not smart enough to know what to do. So he exits and she's pissed off. So she takes it out on Yeeegh. And, I think she tries to hit Yeeegh and he stops her hand, roughly. And then she says, yeah, you're out of here. You're papped.
You're papped. Yeah. I was reading this with a dictionary or, with the computer next to me to look up all these words, the brass neck and things like that. And then I just kind of stopped and just let it kind of roll over me. So I'm not sure. I get the idea. It means you're out, you're kicked out, you're done.
That's a good point to talk about other Scottish vocabulary. I was actually going to try to get a Scottish person to join this podcast, but because it's literally 3 different total opposite time zones, it would be someone having to be awake at like 4 a.m.
Right.
But I don't know how. I've met like 4 or 5 like Scottish people, and questions I was gonna ask them, and one of them's from Glasgow. I was gonna say, so at what age did you realize you had to leave your horrible family and escape Scotland? Do you think? And no, because if your life is anything like this, I can empathize. But other words they say are for weans. Yeah,
that means children. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that one. It's written wean, but I have to think the pronunciation is weans.
Yeah, I think that, which means little ones. Yeah, I think that's what it comes from. Yeah.
Yeah, wee ones, weans, maybe. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Other words, like they said, November smur.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's maybe, like rainy, drizzly weather. I mean, the other thing about this is it just rains all the time. It's just so dark and damp and wet all the time.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. I think, smur means rain.
Mm-hmm.
Other words, like a doubt.
Yeah, is that like a cigarette butt?
Yeah, I think so. Or I guess like the filter, the part you don't smoke.
Mm-hmm.
You got.
I didn't know this was going to be a quiz. Okay, yeah, I stopped looking them up because you can figure it out what it means because it's there's so much repetition because they do the same thing every day. Their lives.
I got like a whole page of them. There was one called a Guy Fawkes night. I didn't get what that one was.
They burned Guy Fawkes in effigy, and he was I forget now. I did look this up at some point, but it's a bonfire. I I think it has to do with burning fires and burning Guy Fawkes in effigy. And I don't remember. I don't think it was the gunpowder plot under Parliament. I'm not sure. That's something that we should probably look up. Part of their culture.
Do you know what a Fenian is?
Yeah, Irish.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there's that, which brings us to the religious controversy that goes on in this book. That I had no idea that there was this contentiousness between Protestants and Catholics. So, like this McGowan, I think, or some of the characters here are Irish, and some of the characters are Catholic, and some of the characters are Protestant, and there's this big, contentious relationship between them. And it seems that the working class Protestants always accuse the Catholics of thinking they're better, being posh, right? And so I think that that's another bone of contention that is reflected in the economics, or maybe even started in the economics, but it shows its ugly face in the religious aspect.
Yeah, but surely the split in like Ireland, the Protestants and Catholics.
Yeah, but this is Glasgow. Well, Glasgow in Scotland, the North was Catholic, the Highlanders and all that. That they're Catholic, and Glasgow was Protestant. But that was like 18th, 19th century. I'm just always shocked that these kinds of divisions are continuing.
Yeah, I think it all goes back to the roots of so England. They broke away. I think their king decided, we're not with the Italian Catholics anymore. We're going to be our own Protestant version of Anglican or whatever. So
yes.
England became Church of England, and that's a Protestant. And so if you're Protestant in Ireland or Scotland, you probably have some connection to those invading, bastarding Southerners. So it could mean you're kind of you're a foreigner. Where if you're Catholic, you're one of the original way back country folk. But Protestant means you're English maybe.
Yeah, it was Henry VIII who separated from Rome because Rome wouldn't give him a divorce from his wife, his Catholic wife, and so he became head of the Church of England. But after him, his first daughter, who became queen, was the daughter of his first wife, and she was a Catholic. So then England swung back to being Catholic. And after her was Elizabeth I, who was Protestant, who was the daughter of one of his second wife, Protestant wife. And so England swung back Protestant. This is all tied into the Reformation that was going on at the same time in Europe. So yes, I get that, but that was 1500s. So it's just shocking to me that in 1980 these lines are still so clearly marked.
Yeah. The another thing I heard on another a history podcast is how for Ireland there was a King Charles in the 1600s or something when they were low on money, when they needed to raise money somehow, they would just take land from Northern Ireland and just something they had to get money from merchants in England and say, okay, so we don't have, we need your money, so we're going to give you land in just Northern Ireland. So that's why in Northern Ireland all these English settlers went there saying this is ours now, and that I guess became a Protestant region.
Yes.
But that even goes back to 400 years, I guess.
That goes back way back also, but that is still going on big time. And although with better economic times, and this was a huge thing during Thatcher's period in power in the UK when she was prime minister. The IRA, the Irish Republican Army, who wanted to get the English out of Ireland and reunite Ireland, they went on a hunger strike. And Margaret Thatcher would not recognize them as political prisoners with a valid cause. She viewed them publicly as terrorists wouldn't give in. Now, I'm not sure if any of those IRA people died as a result of their hunger strike, but I know that went on, and I know that the public face of Margaret Thatcher was, no, they're not political prisoners. Because if she recognized them as political prisoners, then she would have to recognize the Irish cause as political and not just an example of domestic terrorism. It's a very convoluted, stormy history. But let's get back to the tail end of what happens with Agnes here, because she tries to commit, she kicks Yeeegh out. She tries to commit suicide again and kicks Shuggie out. And it's late in the book. He comes home from school one day and he's, adolescent. And the quote is, his voice had broken. It had the entitled timbre of a grown man. And he comes home and says, I'm hungry. They still call her Mammy, which is interesting, is the way that so many Scots settled in the southern United States. And so Mammy is the word that they used for mother. He's hungry because his lunch money is continually stolen every day. He has to give up his money. He gets no lunch. He comes home. He's hungry. I'm hungry. There's nothing to eat. But his voice has this quality that now she resents, even though there's no food in the house because she spends it all on drink. And that's when she kicks him out.
Yep.
When he has the voice of a man. So she kicks him out. He goes to Yeeegh, but eventually he goes back to her. And then he starts really taking the reins of taking care of her and parceling out the money, doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, Yeeegh lives somewhere nearby. He's like a craftsman or something, or he's some kind of
Yeah, I think he's like a carpenter or something, woodworker. Lives in Glasgow, I think.
And
or no, maybe not. Maybe at this point, I'm not sure. I don't remember the details.
She calls him a taxi saying, "Get out. I know you want to be somewhere else. I don't know, anywhere else." And so he just gets in the taxi with no money.
Right.
And this is one episode of the handful of episodes where Shuggie says to the guy, I'll let you touch me. I'll let you can, I know you want to do that. And the guy's like, what? Oh my God. So then he takes him to Yeeegh's house and Yeeegh has to pay. But in the past, Shuggie gets like molested. He gets just like interfered with, as British say, and that just becomes another day in the life. As how another time when Agnes falls off the wagon, he has to go and he has to go find her. He finds out where she is. He takes a taxi, and the guy just starts having his way with him, and then like pities him a little bit. And then when he finds his mom, she's just wrecked. In a bed, and her nylons are just ripped apart, and so they're both like kind of this. I mean, he's the child version of the other side of the same coin or whatever. So and that's where he goes back. Is now back in the present. He goes back to his mom's house, and she had a long night, and even the police had to catch her. I think they throw her in jail where it's cold. He gets her home, and there's a intimate scene where he's helping her get in the bath, as he routinely does. But actually, she just takes her last breaths and just dies on him.
Well, it's interesting because this was one night in March. The police bring her home in the morning, and she'd spent the night outside, outdoors, no shoes, no coat. She'd lost her shoes and coat along the way. They bring her back. He runs a bath for her, goes to school, and then comes back. When he comes back from school, she's asleep in her chair.
Oh, I thought...
and drunk, and asleep in her chair.
I thought she was in jail. But okay.
I don't think so, but I think the police brought her home. But I don't think she was in jail. Perhaps. And he routinely sees that she's having trouble breathing because she's drunk. And so he clears out her mouth so that she can breathe. But eventually, and puts her head in the right position so that her windpipe, is not blocked. But eventually, she begins to choke on her own vomit, and he lets her.
Oh, is that right?
He
Oh my
lets her
God.
die. He doesn't. Yes, he doesn't clean out her mouth. He doesn't reposition her head. He watches her die. It's like that scene from Breaking Bad.
What in the hell? I did not catch that at all.
Yeah, he does. And then, for the first time in a long, long time, she looks at peace. And so, he ended her suffering in one way. One way of looking at it is he ended her suffering. He cannot fix her. And she, he allows her to die, and she is at peace.
Okay. What in
Oh,
the
there are
hell?
the police.
I did not. It was too late. Okay, this must be it. Breathing grew heavier at first, thick and clogged. Her eyebrows nodded slightly, as if she heard some news that was unpleasant to her. Then her body shook. He almost did something then, almost used his fingers to help, but then her breath hissed away slowly, just faded. Her face changed. Okay, wow. So you read into he almost did something then, almost used his fingers to help, but then her breath hissed away slowly.
Yeah, because he did that very thing. He did that very thing, cleared her mouth, a paragraph or two earlier. Hooking, page 410, hooking his fingers, he found, oh, no, that's something else. Rubbed her breastbone. I'm going to leave for school as soon as I can. No good art. He set her high heels. He's undressing her. He's talking to her the whole time. He listened to her breathing for a while. Then he reached to her side, undid the zipper. And he's having this conversation, but he's taking both sides. Agnes coughed again, a dry tickle in her throat that rumbled into her belly and became all at once heavy and thick. The bile was on her lips again. Shuggie stopped running his fingers through her hair and reached for the toilet paper, but something made him stop. He watched her cough. Suppose maybe Yeeegh was right. She gurgled again and her head fell backwards till it rested on the soft back of the chair. This is a dangerous position. Agnes retched, and he watched the bile bubble over her naked gums and painted lips. Shuggie stood there and listened to her breathing. It grew heavier at first, thick and clogged. Her eyebrows nodded slightly as if she had heard some news. It was unpleasant. Then her body shook, not hard, but like she was in the back of a taxi and they were bumping down the uneven pit road again. He almost did something again. He almost used his fingers to help. That is, clear her breathing passage so that she could breathe and adjust her head. He does that earlier, but he didn't. But then her breath hissed away slowly. It just faded, like it was walking away and leaving her. Her face changed then, the worry fell away, and at last she looked at peace. It was too late to do something now.
Okay, wow, I didn't even...
Remember that scene?
Yeah, so there's
Remember that scene in Breaking Bad?
Yeah, of course. It says here, Agnes retched and he watched the bile bubble over her naked gums. So I didn't even read that was her, like, barfing. She was starting to, like, throw up.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I thought she just breathed, like, died in her sleep. I didn't know she was barfing. I didn't even catch that.
Yeah.
Bile, yeah, they say, like, boke. Boke means barf, and I thought bile meant, like, that's like an enzyme your liver makes or something.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, she probably has no food in her stomach, but she's drunk. And so you never want someone who's an addict or drunk to sleep on their back, because if they do vomit, they'll choke because they can't wake up. They can't resuscitate.
Right. Yeah, that's how Jimi Hendrix died. So, yeah, it was too late to do something now. Still, he shook her hard, but she wouldn't wake up. So he realizes, he just hesitates, and he's like, oh, maybe I should do something. But,
he's already gone.
Yep. I guess, he lets her go.
Mm-hmm.
And, so that is that. And another, so then we go into, there's a funeral, or Yeeegh helps with things, with arrangements, because Shuggie is just, like, destroyed. And one final, I think, like, I don't know, the real climax of the story is when, Shug doesn't show up to the funeral. Catherine is in South Africa living with her husband. She got out while the getting was good.
Yep.
And Eugene shows up and tries to have a private moment, but Yeeegh just turns away, which is like giving the middle finger to this dude who just ruined her last chance.
That's right. So he feels, and deservedly so, some responsibility there because he's a responsible person. You know, Shug feels no responsibility. He doesn't even show up. What is interesting about the aftermath is that now he's this 15-year-old boy who's on his own, and he gets an apartment, a bed and sitting room combination, I think. And he is friends with this girl, Leanne, who he met through that, the kid that happened to live in the same building and happened to go to the same school that he followed to school, and happened to use him so he could, you know, Copperfield with his friends, and Shuggie could keep this girl occupied. Well, Leanne understands him because her mother also is an alcoholic, but she's even further down the road. She's just a prostitute. And they bring her a care package together. So one thing about these Scots, I think, is they're practical. You know, there's this harsh practicality about them that is that comes through. And Leanne, who is a beautiful young girl, but she knows there's no hope for her mother, and she knows there's no hope for Shuggie's mother, but Shuggie just keeps, you know, hope springs eternal. I can help her, I can get her back, or I can cure her, but of course he can't. So they're the only friends that I see in this entire book. Theirs is the only relationship that's not just geographical, that is actually a friendship based on mutual experience and understanding.
Yep. Yeah, you're left on like a high note where, this friend, you know, Shuggie he brings like little cakes for his mom's birthday that they eat, and then one cake goes to Leanne's mom, who has the same rap, like you're just jealous, or like, hey, what's wrong with having like a little fun, as they watch her trying to hook dudes, you know, for sex, to get some money or I don't know, companionship.
She's a prostitute. It's for money. Companionship.
Well, I don't know.
She's a prostitute. She wants money so she can buy more drink.
Shuggie gives her cans of salmon, and then as the mom goes away, like ungratefully, she throws them back. Like, what was that about? I didn't really get that. That's
just, you know, don't do me any favors. That is the self-sabotage of the alcoholic, I think. And, you know, even though here's the daughter doing her filial duty, as they would say in Japan, and bringing her clean underwear, helping her change her underwear, and, you know, just completely ungrateful, you know, just completely, well, then don't help me. Go away, you know, and throwing it back. I don't need this. I don't need you. I don't need anybody.
There was one thing funny where Shuggie just straight up asks her, like, why the hell are you like this?
Yeah.
Like asking Leanne's mom, but really asking his own mom. And Leanne just looks and then wants to hear, which is kind of course she gives some, I don't know, lame answer. But that exchange almost sounds like how, if there's a problem that's just too enormous to even try to like approach, like there has to be someone on the outside to just break the routine of like daily survival, like what a therapist does. Like, why do you think you do that?
Yeah.
You just have to realize, like, why should this person care? Okay, there's no other reason than just like what I just would like to know why.
Yeah.
And
just why. He asked that similar question earlier. Why do girls always let boys do what they want with them? He asks that also. And, you know, why? Why do you let him, you know, put his hands where why do you always let him do that? He doesn't get it. Yeah, and I don't get it either. Sometimes you just need, why are you allowing this?
Yeah, but Shuggie is kind of he lets literally everybody on the earth like walk all over him and in every moment of his life. So he's reason to be angry, but it's like, well, why do you do? Well, what about you?
That's right. Well, it's like the sand or the black coal dust just swallows him up. He just, all his life, he's never been valued. He's he's always been different because he's a poofter, right? And very obviously that's the other thing about the Scots. They nail her for what she is when she moves into the neighborhood. They recognize her just like the car repair shop guy does. And everybody recognizes Shuggie for what he is. You don't walk normal. Try to walk like a boy. Try not to be so poofty, all that.
Yeah, so it's the final chapter. I feel like maybe like the publisher got in on this. Like, you gotta kind of make them want to, hey, what's the next book or whatever? So Leanne and Shuggie walk away, and she encourages him like to dance or whatever, or oh, you dance, and dancing is this whole thing, this like a symbol of his I guess like, I don't know, closeted nature or whatever. But now he's like, oh, now I'm free to dance. I can dance. So now he's free of his burden. His mom is gone. Now he can finally live his own life. And but I feel like the writer had another goal in mind, where if we go back to the first chapter, we see where Shuggie actually wound up. But if this was the true ending, people would be like, well, why the hell did I just read this? Like, why would I put myself through this book ever again? Because you see in chapter 1, he's working at a deli. He's like spitting in food. He's living in some...
He also seems to be selling himself.
Yeah.
In that first chapter, he comes out of the shared bathroom and wanted money, but he didn't want to wait too long. So he lets his coat fall open.
He's in the bathroom. He says, he stared and tried to find something masculine to admire in himself. The black curls, the milky skin, the high bones in his cheeks. He caught the reflection of his own eyes in the mirror. It wasn't right. It wasn't how real boys were built to be. So, of course, Shuggie also has the disposition to hate himself, and seems primed up for some, whatever medication or escape he can get. And he probably has the genetic, disposition again to turn to alcohol. And then, another little mini scene in this random chapter is, he says, if he played it right, the man was always good for a few pounds, but it would take too long to wait on Mr. Darling to cash his unemployment. To stoat from the post office to the betting shop to the off license and then home. That was if he found his way home at all. Shuggie couldn't wait that long. So his short-term scam is to offer himself to this guy, Mr. Darling, who's on unemployment, to try to capture some of the money from this guy on benefits. So this Shuggie is... I know.
And they're all on the dole. They're all in public housing. They're all on the dole, and there's no end in sight.
But Shuggie is on the rails to become the next Agnes, to become dependent on someone else who is dependent, which is just an even more precarious position to be in. So I feel like, that's maybe the real ending the writer wanted. But like, people were like, you can't do that at the end. What are you, crazy? Where we see,
you got to give people some hope.
yeah.
Because what is the ultimate message of this book? I mean, the only thing I could come up with is life is hard and you are on your own. Because here's this 15-year-old boy living on his own in this horrible tenement, and he's got he's got a little job. He goes to school when he can afford to, which means he doesn't need to earn money for rent or food or something. But what hope is there? And who's going to help him? Nobody.
Yep. That is the moral of the story. There is no hope. So
it seems to be.
That is the message of Mariana's choice on this episode of the podcast is you are screwed either way. So just let yourself sink into the gray darkness as the black melts your body into the hell of earth that you live in.
Well, it's a pretty bad story, pretty bumpy ride, but some redeeming qualities there are some good passages. It's well written. It wasn't confusing at all. The descriptions are vivid, and they do capture your imagination, even though you maybe don't want to go there.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yep. I would definitely read another one of this guy. There was other things that just could be brought up that were little mini horrible things that happened. Like they go into the backstory of Agnes's mom, who had a husband, Wooly, who went away to the Second World War, I guess. And while he was gone, Agnes's mom, Lizzie, had a child with another guy to survive. And when her husband comes back, he just takes the kid and disposes of him somewhere. We don't know where Agnes's half-brother is. He's just dumped. So I don't know. Who knows?
Who knows? Right, because here you think Wooly is this one character that maybe is going to be good. You know, it has that ridiculous spanking scene when Agnes is an adult, but he says, "Oh, I indulged you. This is my fault. You're come on, you need to shape up." And he spanks her, even though she's an adult. And you think, well, here's a responsible character. Here's a guy who has stood by his wife. He's been there. He's let his daughter and her husband live there. It's been good. And then you hear this whole story about what baby? You know, what'd you do with the baby? What baby? He says. And then they just go on and live their lives. That was just horrifying. Yes.
Yeah, there's too many. That's it. Shuggie has horrible other moments. He's thrown into an old industrial washing machine by a bully kid and gets spun around. He almost sinks into like quicksand of mud and dirt, running away from a watchman as Yeeegh tries to steal some like material, industrial stuff to make some money.
Yep. Just hazards everywhere. Physical, emotional, spiritual hazards everywhere. The only thing they don't do is go and find a priest. So that's good.
Yeah, there was the final thing I'll say is that on chapter 29, when he's going with his neighbor to the neighbor wants to go with his girlfriend, so he needs a buddy to make it a double date. And on the way there, Shuggie says like, "Oh, I'm talking to this guy. He likes him or something. He thinks he's handsome or good looking, and but he knows he has like a cold sore on his mouth." And then immediately next sentence, the guy, "Here, how's your breath? Do you have any gum?" He takes some gum. The boy with the herpetic sore on his mouth takes half of his gum, gives it to Shuggie, and it's like, okay, so now Shuggie has herpes of the mouth from this from this guy,
and just out of my mouth to your mouth. Yeah, that was. Don't be a wimp. Yeah. It's just horrors everywhere and just hazards everywhere, and he just tools along in his kind of innocence, and just kind of he's surviving. These people are not living; they're all just surviving. And that barely. So you get to choose the next book. You get to choose the next one. Make it something uplifting.
The next book is actually going to be a different genre. We've done novels, graphic novels, autobiography. What are the other ones? I forget.
We did novel. I wouldn't call Jackie Chan autobiography. I would call it biography, but
oh, right.
We've done that. We've done graphic novels and we've done novels. So the only thing is sort of a non-fiction, non-biographical.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's why I want to do this. Okay, that Nomadland was like, okay, so now we're going to go into the genre of good non-fiction. We're going to read a book called Guns, Germs, and Steel, The Fates of Human Societies by Jared Diamond. It is a Pulitzer Prize and Aventis Prize winning book. So it's I don't know. I read his other book called Collapse, which is about how civilizations collapse and why do they, what do we think happened to them? Like what went wrong? And this one, I think, this is his more famous one about what resources or what do we think made certain civilizations beat their local competitors. I think so. Maybe about technology and about resources and about germs, maybe like plagues or sickness and things.
So it's called Guns. Say the title again.
It's called Guns, Germs, and Steel. The Fates of Human Societies.
So that'll be our next read. You better give me a month.
This one is, put your helmet on. This one's 480 pages. So, yep, no time. Put down the YouTube and, stop with your Netflix because it's time to do some actual work around here.
I always do actual work. Didn't you get my literary, this is a narrative, this is a book that's not narrative driven, it's character driven. Come on. That was hot stuff there.
That's going to do it. What, episode 6? I forgot already.
I think this was episode 5, but I better try to make a list while I'm thinking of it, and we'll see you at the next episode. Bye-bye for now.
Yep. See you next time.